It may come as no surprise that Malcolm Gladwell once considered a career in advertising because Malcolm himself has become something of a brand that's all about talking about what we think we know about a given topic. So let's say race or crime or marketing, taking that thinking and turning it on its head. He's done it with a trifecta of best-selling books. The Tipping Point, which explores how ideas and behaviors can spread like a virus. Blink, about how we're able to think without thinking, and Outliers, in which he explored what it is that runs through the blood of superachievers, like Number 99, or Bill Gates, or the Beatles. When I was younger, so much younger than today. Now, Malcolm, who is also a must-read journalist, star lecturer.
We think that things we make can solve our problems, but our problems are much more complex than that.
And one-time 1,500-meter high school phenom back when he was 14. Well, that Malcolm has got another Gladwellian book. And yes, that's an adjective. This one's all about giants, underdogs, and misfits, simply titled David and Goliath.
Everybody, please welcome back to the program the wonderful Malcolm Gladwell. How are you?
I'm very well.
I love this concept, dude, of paradigm shift for people, what you perceive as a disadvantage and making it an advantage. When did you first become interested in that?
Well, I met a couple years ago, I met this software mogul. He's from India, and he told me the story about coaching his daughter's, 12-year-old daughter's basketball team, and how he'd never seen a basketball game before, so he started doing his research, and he was totally baffled by how Americans play basketball. And he didn't understand why...
We're baffled by how Toronto team plays basketball.
Yes, I know. Canadians are very familiar with this bafflement, but he was in America, and so he didn't understand why people would... Why one team, after they scored, would always run back to their own end and wait for the other team to bring the ball up. He didn't understand why you didn't play full court press all the time, every inch of the court, particularly if you were bad, because if you were bad, why would you let the good team do the thing that made them good, which is pass? And his team was bad. They were terrible. And so he said to his girls, look, it's pointless for us to learn for me to try and teach you to shoot or dribble or pass, because I don't know how to do that, and you're terrible. But we can...
It's quality parenting, Malcolm.
No, he was totally genius. He was like, but you know what we can do? We can just play this maniacal defense. And so he just taught them to do this for the entire game. And they went all the way to the national championships, winning games by scores like 6-0. Because the other team, it turns out, can't bring the ball up at all if you do that. If you're... And I just loved this. He told me the story. He's this little, skinny, brilliant Indian guy who, he's into cricket. He has no understanding of... But what I loved was his notion that just because his team was terrible, which they were, I interviewed a lot of the girls on the team, he's like, why should we give up? Why do we have to roll over? Why can't we just fight back and just play the game in a different way?
But also, we can win.
Oh, we can win.
We can win.
Yeah. No, that was his whole... By the way, he then went on to buy the Sacramento Kings. Right. He was so interested...
Have you seen the way the Sacramento Kings play?
Well, you just wait. He just bought them. That's so you got to give them a little time.
Can you imagine that? It'd be just tenacious D and no points. But that's so interesting because most people who don't... I mean, like, a lot of people don't feel exceptional at what they do for a living. The statistics bear out that most people don't love what they do, in their daily lives, because most people feel like they can't get there. So in a sense, is that an inspiration, like you're writing for them?
I am. I mean, this book is supposed to be... What I'm trying to get people to understand is that our conventional notions of disadvantage and advantage aren't accurate, that we've called lots of things disadvantages, when in fact it's more complicated than that. And so the reason I started with that story, and also I retell the story of David and Goliath to start the book, because if you look at the story closely, everything you think was a disadvantage about David actually isn't. And Goliath is not what he looks like. He looks like this indomitable giant. In fact, he probably had a medical condition called acromegaly, which is, this is sort of a side thing.
You're bringing medicine in the Bible, dude. What are you doing?
No, it is hilarious because the minute you start digging into these things, you discover these little pockets have been arguing about these things for years. For 50 years, endocrinologists have been arguing about whether Goliath had a tumor on his pituitary gland, and which would explain his height, because when you have a tumor on your pituitary gland, you overproduce human growth hormone, and you get really... Andre the Giant had this condition.
7'4", a beast.
7'4".
Yeah.
But one of the side effects is that it can constrict your optic nerves and leave you largely with very, very limited eyesight. So one of the explanations for why Goliath behaves so strangely and why he doesn't perceive that David is not intending to fight him. I mean, David comes down the mountain and he's got no sword and no armor. He clearly is not intending to fight a sword fight. And Goliath just sits there like he's oblivious. Yeah. Well, the answer is maybe he can only see this far, right? So it changes everything when you realize, wait a minute, the giant is weighed down by 100 pounds of armor and can't see anything.
Right.
He's like this, right? So anyway, I do more with that story, but it's all about this, trying to get people to take a step back and understand that we can give up because we have these, or feel powerless because we have these empty definitions or flawed definitions of advantage.
Feel like you walk into the room and people go, uh-oh, here comes the smart ass. He's ready to come after us now?
You mean with respect to me? Oh, yeah, you do not want to be cornered by me at a cocktail party.
Yeah.
It's just the worst. It's really a bad idea. I really try to get people to kind of just stay away because this is not going to end well. I'm going to be like jabbing you in the stomach.
Where does that come from?
This?
Yeah, that thing in you.
I don't know. I mean, I'm exaggerating.
Yeah.
I'm actually I'm largely actually totally misanthropic. I don't even like talking to people.
Yeah. Well, listen, you're quite good at it, so your second language is working.
Where does it come from? I mean, listen, I grew up in small town Ontario. I now live in New York. I have a massive chip on my shoulder, the best kind of chip. You know, a chip is a terrible thing to waste. You should, you have to kind of...
I heard that you and your buddy, Terry, said that the best way to be punk rock and to be a rebel as a kid in Canada at the time was to be conservative.
Yeah, no, so my mother very artfully had foreclosed every avenue of rebellion. There's nothing I can do to possibly rebel except to become a Reaganite, which I briefly did in my. I had a photograph of Ronald Reagan on my wall for about 3 months in college until I realized this is the worst idea in the world. I am essentially making myself into a pariah, so I took it down.
Your books are kind of weirdly self-help books in that there are the CEO types who write their books and the Habits for Successful People and the Lee Iacocca's, and then there's the more spiritual-based stuff. And then there's this middle group of people who are like, hey, how do I get through this?
Yeah.
And enter you. The moment you're in that space at all, then the backlash happens. You get backlash before your books come out, even on the concept. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I'm flattered, you know.
No, but does it suck at any level? It's like...
Well, am I upset that 100% of humanity doesn't love me? Of course. I mean, we all want unconditional love. But no, I'm not. I mean, my books are intended to be provocative, and people are supposed to argue with it. You know, sometimes those arguments get a little personal, but that's par for the course. I had a hilarious experience. Someone wrote this really mean thing about me in the Columbia Journalism Review. So I was like, it was kind of weird. So I emailed the writer.
What did they write?
Just an article about, you know, blah, blah, blah. David and Goliath, this terrible book. Blah, blah. But it was weird. So I emailed the woman who wrote it. I was like, have you read David and Goliath? And she emails back, actually, I haven't read it, but I've read some of your other work, is how she said. Yeah. And I was like, well, okay, that's one form of backlash where you don't even bother. There's like, they're not even, she's not in the back, you know, if your backlash means that you've gone somewhere and come back, she hasn't even gone there yet.
Right, yeah.
It's pre-lash. Well, it's pre-lash.
There's a whole, it's pre-lash, you're right. Malcolm Gladwell, victim of pre-lash. Stick around, more with Malcolm right after this.
All right, coming up.
Most of the things that most people think, including yourself, are not correct.
Aren't you ashamed to pontificate like that? And the funny part of it is, Marshall McLuhan, you don't know anything about Marshall McLuhan's work.
Really? I happen to teach a class at Columbia called TV, Media, and Culture. So I think that my insights into Mr. McLuhan, well, have a great deal of validity.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Well, that's funny, because I happen to have Mr. McLuhan right here. So, yeah, just let me come over here a second.
Oh,
Tell him.
I heard what you were saying. You know nothing of my work. You mean my whole fallacy is wrong. How you ever got to teach a course in anything is totally amazing.
Boy, if life were only like this.
We're back here with Malcolm Gladwell, Annie Hall. That's what I was thinking about when, I was thinking about you in that context. Have you ever been in public and overheard people going on about your stuff and offering opinions?
Yeah, I have actually.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And what's that like?
You can't jump in. It's too weird to jump in. I once was on a train and these two people behind me spent the entire time arguing about something that I'd written. It was quite fascinating. And one, you know, I obviously sided with one party. And part of me really, really wanted just to kind of go over the seat and just like stick my head like right down and say, but no, it's two. No, you can't do that to somebody.
Dude, that would be amazing. What are you talking about?
No.
How were their debating skills?
Well, you know, the other thing you realize is how people get stuff wrong. It's actually one of the things I learned as a journalist. The first lesson you learn in journalism, and it takes about a year, is that most of the things that most people think, including yourself, are not correct, right? You just learn that, like, it's just, people just remember stuff wrong. They don't mean to, but you remember stuff wrong. It's why journalists have to double and triple check, because you'll write something down and it's inaccurate.
Ask about their debating skills, because look at that picture.
Oh, my goodness. Whoa.
So there you are, chilling
Yeah,
out.
that's, in case anyone's wondering who that is, that's me.
On the debating team?
Yeah, I was briefly on the debating team. I look a little heavy at that, don't I?
No, you look all right.
I'm kidding.
But, I know.
Yeah, no, I think it's the hair is adding
The hair's
a good 10
unbelievable.
pounds.
But here's the thing. You guys didn't possibly win all those trophies.
No, I think that's a joke. I think what we did is we assembled as many trophies as we could from other sporting events, and
That's amazing. So you've been doing it for so long. I love this. And Terry's in that picture as well, right?
Terry's in that picture, yeah.
All right, coming up, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Steve Jobs. Whose legacy will last the longest? We'll explore that with Malcolm next.
So damn close, I can taste it. Also Malcolm Gladwell, doing Boyne meets Kanye.
Maybe the
This is
greatest thing
dedication.
ever happened to me.
I like to live for art, is never a life wasted. 10,000.
So, okay, first of all, that's a Macklemore song, which is great. Not only did you get name checked, which is one thing.
Huge.
It's huge. It's cool, right?
It's, I mean, I'm done at this point. What's left?
But he talked about 10,000.
Yeah.
This 10,000 hours thing. And I was thinking about you going, oh my God, so many people are talking about 10,000 hours. I wonder if they even know, like, does everybody know the whole part of that book? You've just been boiled down to
Yeah.
a couple words.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, you can't. I'll take it. I'm not complaining. Is that way?
Yeah, no, just this idea that now this thing that you've come up with is over here.
Yeah, yeah. No, that happens. I mean, when you write a book, you no longer own it, right? I mean, your readers own it. They're allowed to do with it whatever they want to do with it. That's sort of one of the lovely things about writing books, is you're kind of giving gifts to your readers.
All right, anthropology time. I'm going to give you a hypothetical situation. You have to move back to Canada after a terrible incident at a literary function involving politics, red wine, and rage. Which city do you move to, and what job do you apply for?
Oh, I moved to Toronto.
There you go.
Of course.
But which job?
What job? Oh dear, that's such a difficult job. Well, you know whose job I want is, but I wouldn't be nearly as good as her. Eleanor Wachtel's job at CBC. She's the greatest.
May she live for another 1,000 years, but in 1,001 years. You need to find a new job after a horrific incident at a literary awards gala involving religion, vodka, and a loss of control. Who do you cite as your 3 references?
Oh, wow. Three's a lot.
Yes.
It's a tall order.
You're Malcolm Gladwell. You should have 3.
All right. Well, my mom, who's gonna, I mean, she's gonna go to bat for me, surely.
If somebody puts their mom as a reference, would you hire them?
No, I think so. My mother is a very respectable woman. I mean, she can make a very effective case for me. I think she's known me for many, many years.
Okay, so fine. Your mom is one.
Okay, I got mom. All right. I got 2 others.
Yep.
Well, Terry, from growing up,
Right.
He's a hot shot now, big shot. Yeah. So I think he would be very effective. And you know who my, in college, University of Toronto, I was two of the people on my floor were Nigel Wright and Jim Balsillie, two famous people.
Right. No kidding.
So I wanted
Highs for a while, and then now lows.
I know.
What would be the title of your autobiography, and would your unauthorized biography
Have a different title?
Yeah.
What would the title of? Well, I've thought about what should go on my tombstone. Can that work?
That counts, yeah. Sort of a life's autobiography.
It was. This was a couple years ago when this was more of a current. He had the courage to stand up to those who would say no way and say way. That sums me up, I think.
People would chuckle at your tombstone, and that would be nice. All right.
If you can't get a laugh out of your tombstone,
you can't.
Yeah, like
my favorite one ever.
This is one of the great lost opportunities, by the way. You're dead, right? You have a chance, though, to like inject a little levity into a pretty depressing place.
Right.
Why would you not jump at that?
You should.
What is this in loving memory stuff? No.
Yeah. Dude, I went by to Mel Blanc's tombstone in California, which is the voice of all those cartoons, and his tombstone literally says, "That's all, folks."
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. There's a man after my own heart.
That's all, folks.
No,
my favorite
good.
tombstone joke I always heard about was the guy's tombstone
By the way, it's not like you don't have time to think it through, right? To plan it out. You've got your whole life to come up with something clever, and the best you can do is in loving memory.
Who are the following people? Are they more a David or a Goliath? Miley Cyrus.
Oh, dear. Does she have to fall into either one of those categories? Can we come up with a new one?
We could. Warren Buffett.
Oh, I mean, if you've got $50 billion, it's really hard to call you a David, isn't it? I mean, so...
Yet weirdly, Bill Gates seems to be able to be the David, doesn't he? By doing such
Well, Bill,
cool work.
I've said before that Steve Jobs will be forgotten in 10 years, and Bill Gates will have statues of himself around the world in 100 years.
You think that?
Absolutely, because he's doing something extraordinary, which is he took this enormous pile of cash that he made, and he said, I'm going to give it away. And not only am I going to give it away, I'm going to give it away in the most intelligent way I can, and I'm going to tackle some of the biggest problems known to man. The man, I honestly believe, he is going to be one of the signature figures of our generation.
What's so cool about the Bill Gates statues is it will be statues of Bill and Melinda, right? It will be this beautiful partnership of a family showing how they can care for other families.
With the big glasses. Yeah, that's totally. The right thing. Big, heroic marble statue of a guy with, like, a little skinny guy with glasses. It's going to be fantastic.
Do people ever come up to you and go, let me tell you something, I put in 20,000 hours and it hasn't happened?
It happens all the time.
Does it all the time?
Yeah. No, and I just say, I sort of shrug and ask them if they want their money back.
What a pleasure. The book is called David and Goliath, Underdogs, Misfits, and the Art of Battling Giants. Malcolm Gladwell, everybody.